start. There we go.
Yeah, it should be good. It's setting up right now.
Okay. Well, happy Black Books Week, y'all. Or
Yeah.
happy Black Picture Book Week to the three. Well, I guess to the four of us. I just want to start by again thanking the three of you for joining me in this discussion as we talk about our books opening doors and creating pathways for our little readers, for our community, and maybe even for ourselves. I want to just start by introducing myself. I'm Dara Beevas, the co-founder and co-CEO of Wise Ink Creative Publishing. I'm also the author of a picture book that I wrote specifically for Black girls called Amina of Zaria. And it's about a true story about Queen Amina and her journey to becoming one of the fiercest Nigerian queens in history. And I'm really proud of that book. I'm really excited to continue the series. My next book will be about Queen Nanny of the Maroons from Jamaica. And I'm hoping for a third, which will be about Queen Anne of Angola. And today we have three amazing women who are fabulous in so many ways and just so happen to also be authors of picture books and that celebrate Black culture, Black families, Black life. And I'm just ecstatic for this conversation. So I'm gonna start with just having everybody introduce themselves, tell us who you are, a little bit about your book, the title, what it is about, and also what inspired you. So why don't we start with Crown and then go to Evelyn and then end with Nekima.
Okay, I'm Crown Shepherd and I am born and raised in North Minneapolis. My books are Black Boy, Crown Comics, which came out last Tuesday, and then Black Girl, which is slated to come out May 12th. I wrote my book for my nephews, Black Boy. It is an empowering mantra based off of Brown Bear, what do you see? That inspires little Black boys to look into their future and to challenge that and to see greatness within themselves. So each page depicts a different type of little Black boy, different skin tone of little Black boy, looking at the reflection of himself in the future. We have a president, astronaut, engineer, a judge, just showing them different occupations, different things they can be when they grow up. And I wrote it for my nephew because one of my nephews had a breakdown in Barnes & Noble because none of the characters in any of the books in that store looked like him. And in that moment, I knew, okay, I'm gonna write something and I'm gonna write it for them. And that was the promise that me and him made in that bookstore. And a year and a half later, Black Boy was published, and each page depicts one of my different nephews. So that's why each page is a different Black boy. And I just wanted to show that we are multiple, like there's different shades of us, different tones of us, different shapes of us, different styles of us. To be Black doesn't mean one thing. And that was one of the big things that I wanted to showcase in my books. That's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Evelyn Logan. I am the author of On the Streets of Ondo. I am really excited about the book. Just a little bit about me. I am Nigerian American. I was born in America, but moved to Nigeria really early on. And I spent 10 years of my life in Nigeria, really taking in the culture and everything and just enjoying life there. It's how I remember it in hindsight. You know, when you look back in history and everything that goes on in Nigeria, it doesn't quite look the same, but just, you know, as a kid growing up there, these were the experiences that I had. So On the Streets of Ondo is about three brave friends who go out on the town to find the Dara man. And the Dara man, Dara is actually, the word Dara is means scary in Yoruba, the language that we speak in Nigeria. And so, they go out to look for the Dara man. And, the story around town is that the Dara man, he's a scary man that stops or makes people disappear when they go out at night. And so these three brave kids, they go out at night, they want to find the Dara man and they want to stop him from making people disappear. And the question is, will they do that? Will they stop him from making people disappear? But the big thing about the story for me and what inspired me to write the story is all about my mom. My mom was born and raised in Ondo. Half of my family, Nigerian family, is from Ondo. The other half is from a place called Ikure. But growing up in Ondo, I remember my mom, her mother telling us stories about what her grandmother said, and just generation to generation stories being passed down. And while On the Streets of Ondo is not a story that they told me growing up, it certainly is a story that is inspired by that kind of relationship, by that kind of generational relationship. And so it's about community, it's about the village, it's about working together to love one another, to embrace one another, and things like that. And so I'm really excited that it's coming out. It is a series book, so these kids are going to go off on other adventures outside of just being on the streets of Ondo. I'm really excited about that and can't wait to tell everybody more later about that. But that's a little bit about me, and that's a little bit about my book. Thank you so much for having me, Dara.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege and an honor to be in this space amongst greatness. And I'm just blessed to be a part of this discussion with Black women who are making it happen for their community, who are using literary tools to try to reach our children. I mean, that's really inspiring. I always loved to read when I was a kid, and that just sparked the path that I have been on ever since. So my name is Nekima Levy Armstrong. I'm a civil rights attorney and activist here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Specifically, I live in Minneapolis. I am a mother of four. My youngest child is 4 years old, and her name is Asada Joy. And the book that I wrote is called J is for Justice, and it's inspired by my daughter as a child, as a baby even, being out on the front lines during various protests and demonstrations, advocating for police accountability and fighting against police violence and oppression. And so literally, I was pregnant with her and out still marching and demonstrating. And from the time that my child came out of the womb, she's been out there on the front lines, taking it all in, learning chants, connecting with other people who are out on the front lines. So it's a very unique experience for a child to have, particularly in this day and age, and while the world is watching what's happening here in the Twin Cities. And so I wrote this book thinking about other young children who might be curious about protests that they see passing through their communities or on the news, and trying to give them a way of processing what is happening, some of the language, trying to move fearful and realizing that a lot of the folks who are out there are just people who want to see things change and people who want to make a difference. And so the book centers around a mom and her daughter kind of walking down the street, and then they happen upon a group of protesters. And Joy is afraid initially when she sees the people walking and chanting and marching. And then they invite Joy and her mom to join the protest. And so Joy is looking around, she's taking it all in. And then by the end of the book, she's saying like, J is for justice. She has learned something that is now part of her vocabulary and her understanding about issues that are happening in the world. So I'm just excited. I'm thankful to Dara for just encouraging me and inspiring me. It took me a long time to birth one book. I've written a bunch of articles and everything, but it took me a long time. I think I had various barriers regarding becoming an actual author, let alone a children's book author. But Dara was like a midwife, just helping to moved me along until finally something came out that I can be proud of. So I just want to thank you, Dara, and I want to thank the powerful women who are part of this conversation. And I have read Black Boy, Black Boy. So, and it's a beautiful book.
You know, it's interesting that Crown, when you were talking about Black Boy, you talked about your nephew and how he didn't see himself on the shelf. And I wanted to ask all three of you about what your experience was as a young reader, and did you feel represented? And what would it have felt like to you to read the book that you wrote?
No, I did not. As a kid, I didn't feel represented at all. And I was a reader. I still am a reader, but as a kid, I devoured books. But it was the Babysitter's Club, you know, things like that. And then the Judy books. And so that always had white characters and stuff like that. So no, I didn't grow up. I remember my first Black book was The Color Purple, and I was like 11, and that was intense. And I didn't really understand all the different themes that were presented in that book. But it was the first book that I read that was like 5 Black women and had Black characters. So I was over the moon. And if I would have grown up with books that are coming out now, and even my book as a kid, I probably would have been a little bit more cocky than I already was as a kid. You know, I probably would have been feeling myself a little bit more, you know, if I had Black girl growing up and I had like that representation of like a little girl in a book that looked like me. I probably would have, yeah, I would have been a little bit more cockier than I was as a kid.
Yeah, I completely agree with Crown. I mean, I think that, you know, growing up, it wasn't even about, you know, picture books, because there already wasn't any picture books. So, you know, you were going straight to text, almost like we're talking about The Color Purple. I know why the Cage Bird Sings was a big one for me growing up. And it was like, okay, where are we represented other than that, you know, where we could actually see visual images, you know, and there wasn't that many options. And every now and again, there would be that one or two books that I know this is a whole another discussion by itself, but that wouldn't be written by Black authors, but would be, you know, that kind of, you know, a book about Black characters in there and plots and things like that. And so, you know, really the trend that we're seeing in the last year or two with Black authors coming out and writing about all sorts of topics around the globe, you know, it's not even just one experience, you know, it warms my heart. It's inspiring. And I think that it's very important, because when we talk about the next generation of kids and what they're seeing and what they're understanding and changing that process, you know, this is how you start to do that. You start with the pictures in the picture book world, and you move up with other stories where they could easily visualize themselves as that character, even when there's no images, you know? Yeah.
I'd have to agree with Crown and Evelyn in terms of the dearth of books that reflected who we were as Black children, particularly Black girls. It's hard for me to even recall books that I read as a young child that had our images positively reflected. And for me, it goes back to being a child initially in Jackson, Mississippi, before moving to LA. And the books that we used in our classroom, it was an all Black classroom, Black teachers, predominantly Black schools. But the books we were learning to read from were Dick and Jane, you know, white characters, you know, running around, and we're supposed to relate to them. And as a child, I read the books, but it wasn't until later, as I became more conscious surrounding race relations and racial justice, that I understood the impacts of looking at a book and not seeing myself or my people represented and reflected. And I could see how easily that would be a turnoff to kids who are not going to go beyond the pictures, you know, in terms of reading what's on the pages, because the pictures are the first representation of mainstream white folks and mainstream white children and centering them. And then the words and the experiences are not connected to who we are, the way we talk, the way we think, you know, our culture and our traditions. And so all of those things can create barriers, even for children, before they even know and understand what's going on. So I am glad to see Black authors emerging. I think that the digital revolution is helping to aid Black authors in being able to come forward and write books and produce books and have books printed more quickly than, you know, what the traditional publishing world had offered back in the day. And so that is very promising. And my hope is that young girls who are reading our books won't necessarily wait to become adults before writing their own children's books, right? That's how you begin to build a pipeline and break these cycles and infuse a new paradigm into the current structure.
Beautifully stated, all three of you. My book, Amina of Zaria, went into I have a 5-year-old daughter, Genesis. The three of you know that, and you know how spunky she is, and how affirmed she's been as a Black girl, thanks to her aunties, Nekima and Evelyn and Crown, and your books and what you do. You know, my little girl has a very strong sense that she is a little queen. And her book, the book that I wrote, I say her book, but I say that because I wrote it when I was pregnant and I wanted her to have it. And that book went into her classroom, and her teacher, she's the only Black girl in her class, and her teachers were excited about the book and they read the book. And that was a transformational experience for me when my daughter came home and she was like, "Mommy, we read your book." And she just got to, I think, feel on a whole other level her value and her worth. And not just because I wrote it, but because her classroom affirmed that it was a book that was worthy of reading to the whole class. So when we talk about how our books are transforming community and our children, that was transformational for me. And for the first time, I understood how devalued I had felt as a child. Like what you were saying, all three of you, that so many of our books were not visual representations of us. And I'm just curious, all three of your books, Crown, your Black Boy is out, but you have a book that's coming out. Evelyn, your book is not out yet, and Nekima, your book is not out yet. How has creating these books so far transformed you? I'm just really curious about that.
Well, I would say for me personally, I feel that I reached a milestone in terms of coming out of my comfort zone and remembering and centering Black children while we're out here fighting for justice, right? And also, not only being inspired by my own daughter, but being inspired by other children who are out on the front lines, being pushed in strollers, who will have little baby bullhorns, out there doing their thing. And then taking it a step further, remembering the sacrifices that Black children made during the civil rights movement. How the adults in the midst of protesting and boycotting, they had to get back to work because it was going on for a long period of time. And Dr. King went into the schools and he pulled the children out and had them out on the streets as protesters and demonstrating and marching and being bold and courageous for the sake of justice for our people. And so being reminded of that is really empowering and inspiring. And it lets me know that children aren't just children in terms of the way that society kind of boxes them in. Children are paying attention to everything that is happening around them, and they want to know what is their place, in all of the unfolding events. So that was transformational for me to remember that and to be intentional about making sure that children know that they have a place in the movement, on the front lines, and in fighting for justice for our people.
What about you, Evelyn? How has writing and creating on the streets of Ondo, how has it transformed you? You've been really busy, and I've, you're doing the homeschooling thing with your children. You wrote this book, you crowdfunded it. You've had so many stages and phases of creating it. What has your transformation been like?
Oh man, it's been a big transformation for me as a writer in general. I mean, you know this, Dara. I wrote On the Streets of Odo back in 2014. Y'all, 2014, 8 years ago. I shared the draft with Dara, just played around. You know, we talked about, she was like, yeah, Dara had just, she had been several years into Wise Inc. Was like, yeah, you should publish it. I was like, oh yeah, at some point, because, you have life going on, you're working, I was a healthcare executive for many years. And so that was a busy life with 3 young kids. And I just put it back, to the wayside and talk about, Langston Hughes's phrase, a dream deferred is like a raisin in the sun. That thing was just shriveling it up. And, you come out and you say, hey, I've always wanted to do this thing. Don't sell yourself short. And so here I am doing that, and it's changed me as a person. I'd have to say one of the skills that's better now for me is I listen better to people, because I like to talk. I like to talk like crazy, and now I just listen better, because I think it makes for better stories and better storytelling and things like that. And so it's great to be able to transform in that way. My writing has transformed. I write a lot better now, than I did before. But also to my view about the world and hope for children, and how many people that I've met, even on this panel in and of itself, that shows me that we care about the next generation, that, we're not willing to let them down, so to speak. And I don't know if that's from our own experiences or not, but I think that, the kids need us, and we're starting to show them ways that they can connect with us and what we can do to support them moving forward. Every story that I've heard on this panel today is fantastic. It's reaching out to a wide range of kids about a wide range of topics. And I think that in that way, it's just transformed me as well, just realizing that the world is so much bigger, and there's a lot of people out here doing great things, and connecting with those people is so important.
Thank you for that. What about you, Crown?
Where do I begin? Where has it transformed me? My whole life changed. I started a 5-year plan 4 years ago, so I'm in my last year of my 5-year plan. And when I started it, I was working 80-hour weeks as a security officer. And I work for myself now. I said, I don't have to leave the house when it snows. That's like the best thing this winter. I've started 2 different companies. But the biggest transformating thing for me was building a financial legacy for my family. Through self-publishing, it's my intellectual property, and I own it. And I tell my mom and my family all the time, like, if I die today, you can make money off of what I've already created. And going into generations, it can continue to make money off of what I created out of nothing. So, I mean, this has been my dream since I was 8 to be an author. That came true. I made that happen. So like my whole life transformed, like, honestly. But those were the biggest things for me, was like creating that financial legacy for my family. It's growing, it just started, but it's definitely something that's growing, that I continue to add to every day, that my family can continue to grow off of and build off of. And we are building financial wealth off of something that I created. So that's been the biggest transformative thing for me, because I always tell people I'm non-traditionally educated, because I educate myself on everything. And I'm successful. And I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's all just been a change. Like my whole life was on one trajectory, and now it's on this limitless trajectory that literally changes every day. The opportunities that I get, the people that I meet. Like 4 years ago, I tell people all the time, 4 years ago, I was Tiara. That's my biological name. My birth name is Tiara. 4 years ago, I was Tiara. And today I walk confidently as Crown. So that big old transformation right there, I'm speechless, really. And that's hard to do with me, to be speechless. So, I mean,
Crown,
That's
I
the
feel
biggest
like
thing for
that's a
me.
book too. I think that's a book, like the metamorphosis of Tiara into Crown. That is a book too.
I love to write.
I love what you're talking about in terms of legacy, because I feel so strongly that Nekima, your book is absolutely doing that. Evelyn, your book is absolutely doing that. You two have daughters seeing their Black moms creating books that will pour life and enrichment into the community. And that is a legacy. But I love what you said, Crown, about the financial piece as well, because the three of you used the crowdfunding platform Kickstarter to fund your books. And I'm curious about the thought for why that worked for your books. All of your books were fully funded. So, snaps for that. And wanted to just ask you about, like, all three of you are self-published or self-publishing. And did you want to talk anything about that? Like the financial legacy part, retaining your intellectual property, also not sharing royalties with a publisher. You're working with Wise Inc. in different capacities, but you own what you've created, and you're going to make what you make without sharing profits. And I think that's important to name as Black people. I would love just to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so when I first started on the journey, I was hell bent on traditional publishing. I was for sure it was the only way to go. Although Dara had this company that I knew about, by the way, and I supported in many ways. But I felt like that spoke volumes about what I had written. I put so much value in that versus the work that I had done. And so, being able to just, again, expand my purview and open my eyes to what's out there and really where the value is, and which is in the story itself, and getting that story out, not necessarily waiting for somebody to tap me and tell me, your story's good enough to get out and we're gonna pay you to do that. And then when you look at the grand scheme of things and you talk about financial and legacy, that's one thing. You're always sharing the rights. And it's amazing. And Crown mentioned this early on that, when you're sharing the rights, it's a totally different feeling from 100% profit, which you get. And then not just financially, but the rights to it. That's a legacy. That's something that you could put in the chest for your kids to say, this belongs to us. And so it's such an important element. And going through Kickstarter, it's because, you want to produce the highest quality book out there. You just don't want to create a story. You want the visuals to be great. You want the editing to be done very well, where kids can really engage and read your story, where it feels like it's an action-oriented book. You want the layout to look right, the illustrator. And so it costs to do that independently. And Kickstarter seemed like a great place because it wasn't necessarily that people were just donating money to you. They're pre-ordering your work, understanding what your work is. And so it was a great avenue, a great experience. I shared with the group earlier before we went online, and I said, what, it was so emotional. I'm coming off of Kickstarter, and I probably cried, tears of joy because I made it. It was like teeth cringing kind of thing at the end there. But, because I made it, and it was just felt really good and validating that, the work that I have done, people have received it, and they really want to see it come out, and it wasn't just the backers, but what the backers said. I got lots of messages coming in saying that the story is inspirational, and full of suspense, it seems like, and they can't wait to read it, and so all of those things come together. And that, that is what's important, building that experience. The journey has been great for me. From even with the craziness of Kickstarter, the journey has been fantastic. I can't wait for the book to get out, for people to get their hands on it. But yeah, that's, it is really about that legacy, and it is, it's all of it. It's all of the experience, really.
Yeah, I would have to agree with what Evelyn just shared. I also went through Kickstarter, and I'm glad that I did, because it allowed my network to get involved in something that was important to me. I not only advocate for justice for Black folks, but I advocate for white allies to put some skin in the game, right? To utilize their privilege, to advocate their resources and not just sit on the sidelines and let Black people do all the work. And so going through Kickstarter was an opportunity to engage them in my work as a children's book author, connecting it back to the justice work, which is why a lot of people follow my Facebook page and other social media, but also reminding white allies to intentionally begin to teach their children about these kinds of issues so that they can be anti-racist and not go into the default of, perpetuating white supremacy, right? And so that was really powerful to have that experience, to see the excitement from people in my network and to see them tap their networks to encourage them to support my Kickstarter as well. And it also boosted my confidence. Like, I can do this. I have people who believe in me, who are encouraging me, who are writing notes, who are excited about it. And so it helped me be more confident, even though I initially felt so vulnerable, even sending my initial draft to Dara. I don't know why. I mean, I've written law review articles, newspaper articles, essays, book chapters, but there was something about writing my first book, and particularly a children's book, that definitely made me feel vulnerable. And Dara, held my hand throughout the process and even gave me insights from when she launched her Kickstarter about what worked for her and what she would recommend. So I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful that it was fully funded. I can't wait for my book to come out. And I want to see more Black authors utilize Kickstarter. I think too often we try to bootstrap, and like all of us, we just try to figure things out. But if there are these platforms that are in place, we need to be intentional about utilizing them and putting that pressure on our networks who claim they support us. It's like, well, roll up your sleeves and prove it, right? Show that you believe in my work and what I'm trying to do for my community.
I just have to say some amens before we go to Crown, because that was so, yes, for real.
Yes.
For real. In fact, Nekima, I have been suggesting Kickstarter to almost every Black creator for the very reason that you just named, that we often hear from our community and our network and the white folks in our community, like, how can I support you? How can I amplify what you're doing? Kickstarter is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to get people having, what you said, skin in the game. Beautifully stated. Now, Crown, you've done a couple Kickstarters, right? More than one?
I have done 3, and I have 2 this month. I did 2 for myself, and I literally just sent out fulfillments for my last Kickstarter, Crown, for my comic book. And then I've done 1 Kickstarter for a client. All 3 that I've done have been funded. Like Evelyn said, it is an emotional roller coaster. I got a love-hate relationship with Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter because, like Nekima said, it is a chance to get your network, your support system in, put your money where your mouth is, like you say you support me, you say you believe in me. So I love it for that. And it does show you who does support you. Like, and touching on that white allies sort of situation, a lot of my white allies showed me what it meant. Like, especially with my last campaign, Crown was kind of just, I wasn't in it. I wasn't in it when I was doing it. It was like, if I get it, I get it. I kind of wasn't in it. But then I had a white ally, Hannah. She works for Wives Inc. And she was the project manager for me for Black Boy. Swooped in literally at the last hour, breathing life back into me, to breathe life back into my campaign. And I literally got it. So I love that. Yes, that aspect. It definitely shows you who's in it with you, who's not in it with you. But it is an emotional, like, the anxiety, like one day you like, oh, I got this big donation comes in and you're like on top of the world, and then a whole week goes by and no movement, and you're like, you don't know what to do. Like, you're like, I've done everything. Like, I've sent out the emails, I've done the social media posts, I've called my friends. I've done everything you think you can, but it's an emotional roller coaster. And I don't know why I'm doing 2 in 1 month. I have a client that starts hopefully today if it gets through review, but probably tomorrow. And then I'm starting Black Girls on the 15th. And like Dara said, I recommend it to all, like any client that comes to me. I have a lot of Black creators that have been coming to me lately, asking me for my help when it comes to Kickstarters and stuff like that. I'm a big advocate for it because I don't even look at it as like a fundraising campaign. I tell people off that it's a pre-sale. Shout out to Hannah for that one, but it's a pre-sale. Like because they're getting something at the end of it. Like when all is said and done, I'm shipping out books. You know, like yesterday I went to the post office for an hour shipping out books from a Kickstarter. So it's like, it's not like you're giving me money. I'm like, you're buying stuff, but you're just giving me the money up front so I can pay for, you know, whatever it is that I need to pay for. But I'm all for Kickstarters, but you gotta just know that you gotta be ready for them 30 days, just an emotional roller coaster, because it's not gonna be easy. It's even if it's not, unless you get it in the first 2 days, which one of my clients did. She got it in the first couple days. And I told her, well, if she got it in the first 2 weeks, I told her she would have got it in the first week and she would have just listened to me, but she didn't listen to me. But she had it easy. I was more stressed out than her. She wasn't paying attention to the campaign, but her network came out. Her support system came out and showed out. And so like, I'm all for Kickstarters. Just be emotionally ready. I just got triggered talking about it. Whew.
I'm gonna put my mom on blast and let everybody know that she was the very last person to fund my campaign. So
you saved the best for last.
There you go. So when you say emotional, there were a lot of elders in my network who were like, how do you do this, baby? How do can I send you a check? Can I, so there, it is very, it is a lot of work, but I really truly do feel like we're talking today about opening doors and how our books are opening doors. I even think that as Black creators, the way in which we create our books can open doors. Someone seeing us use Kickstarter is opening a door for someone else to think about how they can do it and have more resources to publish a high quality product. So I'm so happy that you all shared your experiences. It took
Dara, can I chime in on when you get a second?
Yes, please.
So one thing that this conversation is reminding me of surrounding Kickstarter is, you know how once you are in Kickstarter, it tells you other projects that you might be interested in, right? And so one project that I saw during my Kickstarter campaign was a story about a girl who I went to school with when I lived in LA. Her name is Latasha Harlins. Some people know her story. If you listen to the rapper Tupac, he used to talk about Latasha all the time in his raps and his songs. But to make a long story short, Latasha and I went to junior high school together. I went off to boarding school on the East Coast. She stayed in the LA area. One day in March of 91, I believe, or 90, she walked into a local store, went and got a bottle of orange juice, put it in her backpack, walked to the counter to pay for it. And the woman who owned the store, who was a Korean immigrant, there's a lot of discrimination for low-income Black folks going into the corner stores. The woman accused her of stealing the orange juice. Latasha was trying to pay for it. The woman wound up in a physical altercation with Latasha. Latasha threw down the orange juice, her money, turned to walk out the store, and the woman literally leaned across the counter and she shot and killed Latasha. And she was only 15 years old. That was the first time I saw, this notion of Black lives, not mattering with regard to how the justice system treated the woman like she was the victim. She served no jail time, even though a jury found her guilty. But when I went on Kickstarter, there was a young Black man who had done a short film about Latasha when he was in film school. And he was doing his Kickstarter to put out a feature-length film about Latasha Harlan's story. And so through my organization, I was able to reach out to him, and now being an executive producer of that film with a small investment through that process. And so my own experience with Kickstarter at that time has now helped open the door for another Black creative to tell a story about a Black girl who did not deserve to die in her own community. So it is a powerful tool, even when you see what other Black creatives are doing and when you have the opportunity to support their work.
I'm so glad you shared that story. And it led to another question that I have for you, Nekima, but also, for you, Evelyn and Crown as well. Nekima, do you feel like there is something particular about this time we're in and why these stories are coming to light when, we haven't seen? I think I definitely have heard about Latasha's story, and it was, I think, a little bit of the O.J. Simpson documentary. It was sort of like a footnote in that the outrage of her death and Rodney
King
led to why the Black community reacted to OJ's verdict. That was the first time I had actually heard about Latasha's story, was in that context. I've not ever seen her story told in and of itself, just singularly about her. And
Right.
I'm excited to know that story is going to be told. And I'm just curious, like, why do you think that this is the time that we're starting to see our stories come to fruition in our picture books and our films? And just creatively, there just seems to be something happening in this moment. And I just wanted to ask you about that.
Yes, I do think that something significant is happening in this moment. I mean, I believe in God's divine timing, God's divine orchestration, because I was just thinking, like, how is it that I happen to be doing my Kickstarter at this time? And then I just glance and see this film about one of my classmates that this person wants to produce. And so I think, so there's God's divine timing. I think that there's also an awakening that is happening in our society and amongst Black people in particular, right? Where we are paying attention to our own sense of self-worth, or if we don't feel value in this society, and trying to find ways to fight back, to resist oppression, to create these economic engines. And as Crown was talking about, the financial legacies for our family. Because while we're on the front lines fighting for justice, and one thing to think about is all the ripple effects that have impacted so many other industries, where you have corporations now reaching out to Black entrepreneurs and trying to connect with them and get their products, on airplanes and in Target and other locations. So the doors are opening from a lot of the activism that is being stirred up in the streets. And for me, it goes back to, of course, when Dr. King was killed on April 4th, 1968, and how at that point you saw the movement, begin, the civil rights movement really just almost came to a screeching halt in the years after he was assassinated. But with the killing of Trayvon Martin 10 years ago, this past Saturday, that is what began to open people up to this notion of standing up, taking to the streets, fighting back, being proud of our identity. I was doing a discussion the other day where we were talking about how the hoodie became like a symbol of resistance to oppression, because that's what we saw when Trayvon Martin was killed. So I think all of this is happening for a reason. I think that awakening that is happening in our lifetime is very powerful, and it's having ripple effects across various industries and sectors, including the emergence of all of these Black books to provide to our children and young adults in our community.
Well stated. Evelyn, Crown, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I agree with Nekima that there's been like this awakening, and also we're finding other ways. Like I didn't know when I went to go start writing and publishing, I didn't know about self-publishing. And I think technology has definitely helped us also by getting the word out about certain things, because I didn't know that I could go this route. Like Evelyn said earlier, I just kept thinking I had to go traditional. Like that was the only way to fulfill my dream, is to wait for some white man in some suit to tell me that my Black book was marketable enough. And that's essentially what it is. And once I figured out that I didn't have to go that route, and honestly, the biggest thing for me was realizing that I couldn't take that route, that I had to take the route that had the bumps and the roadblocks and everything. And once I solidified that in my mind and told myself that, I wasn't disappointed or upset when the bumps came and the roadblocks came. I took them in stride. And I think that's where our resilience as Black Americans come into play too. We're finding other avenues to do what we want to do. And especially with this new generation, like we don't want to go work for some white man all day. And a lot of us can't. Like, I'm somebody, I can't do it. Like, I last a couple years and then I just can't anymore. And I gotta go somewhere else. My life didn't become fulfilled until I followed my path. Like, until I took that road that was like the hard road, but it's the only road that's set up for me. And once I accepted that, it was easy. Like, everything just flowed. And I think a lot of Black Americans are realizing that with technology and just access to everything, it's like I can go on YouTube and learn everything I need to learn for certain things. And I've done that. You know what I mean? I've gone on YouTube and taught myself something and made a boatload of money off of it. And I think we're learning that we don't have to live the American dream. You know, our dream isn't the American dream. We're never going to live the American dream. And I think as Black Americans, we're starting to accept that and open our eyes to that and realizing that we have to go this way. We have to divert to get to where we need to be. And I think that's where a lot of us are starting to think and process things now, and taking that to our advantage, using that to our advantage and not being silenced. You know what I mean? Like, I might not be traditionally educated, but I'm just as good as the person that's got a BA, probably if not better, because I had to work a lot harder to get the knowledge and the information that I needed. So that's my point of view on it.
Very well said. Absolutely well said.
And I'll just quickly add, 'cause I agree with both Crown and Nekima. I mean, you know, what is the saying? The revolution will not be televised. Well, it will be televised. It will be social media and everything in between. I think that empowerment in of itself has gotten us to a place where we could live out our dreams. We could write the books and tell the stories and put it out there and let our kids and kids after them see themselves represented in this book. And it's a big trend. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the trend came from these crimes of police brutality, just citizens shooting people. I mean, Ahmaud Arbery was, just 2 years past now in February. And, it's unfortunate that those events have really pushed us forward, but we're grateful for them. And we're grateful that we're able to move forward and use that as some kind of catalyst, to honor that those things actually happened. And so being able to write these books and get it on the bookshelves and support each other's Black authors supporting Black authors, Black people supporting Black people in general, being able to get in those places and doing those things is exactly what we need. It's inspirational, and we have to continue to support each other in that way. So that we can move forward. Otherwise, we're going to be back to where we started from. But the kids have to see it now. They have to see that visual now. They have to see the representation now. They have to see us doing all kinds of things. They have to see lawyers in books. They have to see doctors in books. They also have to see authors in books. They also have to see actors in books, because it's, I don't talk about this enough, but, growing up Nigerian, it was always about the education, and not just the education, but the type of education that you're getting. Are you going to become a lawyer? Are you going to become a doctor? Are you going to become an accountant? Are you going to become a business person? But you have to have a business before you become a business person, kind of thing. Whereas now you see a lot of Africans, especially a lot of Nigerian Americans, coming out in the entertainment industry, doing many different things. So these books show us that we can be all things. We could be astronauts, we could be writers, we could be actors, singers. Just lay it out for us. We could do it, celebrities, sports, big sports giants folks. And, we could be all of those things. And so I really do feel like that's what these books are doing. They're inspiring, not just in the US, but globally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have about 5 to 10 minutes left. And what I thought we would end on is I would love just to hear from each of you how you want the people who will watch this to follow up with you, what you want, how you would like for them to engage with your book. This is the year of your books. And so, I really want folks to be able to know what the website is, how you want them to reach out, how you want them to support. But I also want you to, before you get there, give a word of wisdom or advice to someone who has a picture book. I can tell you in the work that I do that so many people say they have a book to write. And many of us have children's stories that we want to write. There is just something about writing for our little readers, our young ones, that calls to many of us. And Nekima, I know you have future books that you're writing as well, not just J is for Justice, but you have other ones. Evelyn, you have, and Karan, I hope that you just continue to just churn these picture books out as well. What's your advice for somebody who is sitting with that? They have an idea, they want to do it, they're scared, they're curious, they're intrigued. What's your advice? And then how do you want folks to follow up?
I would say if people are scared, but they're intrigued, to do it anyway, right? And to find a coach or someone like Dara who can act almost as a midwife in the sense of helping you overcome your fears, holding your hand, gently nudging you and encouraging you forward. I mean, I'm telling you, it helped me break through a lot of barriers that I didn't know existed within my own psyche about getting to this place. And people are surprised because, I'm out there on the front lines, I'm leading demonstrations, but that still doesn't mean that there aren't areas of vulnerability or fear, right? And so having someone who is a champion for you, who is an advocate for you, who is an encourager, makes a huge difference in terms of overcoming any of those barriers that might exist in your mind. So I would just encourage people, do it anyway. Find someone who's going to be in your corner and think about the outcome on the other side of your fear of what you are trying to accomplish. And then remember, fear is false evidence appearing real. So we got to do what we got to do, in the spirit of our ancestors, and particularly the Black women who came before us, to bring forward something out of nothing, which is, what has been handed down to us. In terms of following up, I would encourage people to get the book when it comes out and to try to get it into your child's classroom as well. I would love to see children from various backgrounds reading the book, engaging with the book, but particularly Black children, looking at the book, reading the book, and feeling a connection to the characters in the book. In terms of engaging, me in particular, I'm on Facebook, and I'm also as Nekima Levy Armstrong, and I'm on Instagram as Nekima L, and I'm on Twitter as NV Levy. And so, if anyone wants to connect, please reach out. I would also love to speak or do, readings of the book, whatever I can do, to connect with people, to connect with children, and again, to continue to build upon this legacy. So I'm just excited, I'm grateful, I'm honored, and I appreciate everyone's support.
Boss. That's what I'm calling Nekima. I know that's right. Loved everything and I agree with everything that you said there. If I had one advice, it would be right. It's the best advice that I've gotten. If you want to get into writing, just start writing, write anything. you will get to the point where you're writing what you want to see too, but just write. That's the best advice I've ever gotten. And so that's the one I'm going to share with everybody. As it relates to On the Streets of Ondo, I'm so excited about it. It's a book that is set in Ondo, Nigeria. And for me to put a book out there that, is a first representation of Africa for some people, whether you be white, Black, from Russia, Europe, anywhere in the world, South America. And I love the idea that you could just, living your own truths wherever you're from. That's really what that book is about. And it is also about family. It's also about multi-generational relationships. It's so important. I talk about it all the time, the importance of community and the village, from the beginning to the end, the stories that we're passing on, the legacy that we're living our kids, what we want to see them take with them, and pass on to future generations. And so the book is about that. And it definitely is about family because it is set in where my mom is from. And so I hope that when it comes out, you will check it out. And I hope that same thing with Nekima, that it ends up in classrooms because there's lessons to be learned through the book, whether it be geography, cultural, family orientation, love, compassion, and just a whole host of things that you can get from an 865 word story with beautiful illustrations, and so I think again, it's something that I hope that will find its way, not just in America, but across the globe, because that really is what it's meant for. And I hope that every children, when they're introduced to Nigeria, when they're introduced to Africa, when they're introduced to Ondo, feel like that is a place that I want to go. That is a place that I want to share with other people. That is a place that warms my heart. And so hopefully that's what people get from it. Where can you find me? The most popular places, Facebook and Instagram. I will tell you now, I'm not a heavy social media person, but I'm trying to hang in there. You know what I mean? So on Facebook and Instagram, I'm at Evelyn Logan Writes. I am on Twitter, but like I said, 2 or 3 posts a month, maybe. Yeah, I've really tried. And so that's at Evelyn Logan Writes without the vowels, WRTS on that one, just because of the number of letters you can fit on Twitter. Outside of that, my website, www.evelynloganwrites.com. I've updated it. It's looking a lot better. Subscribe. I'm sharing a lot of information there. That's my tribe. That's my posse. That's my village. So please subscribe there. Other than that, it has been a pleasure. And I know we're still going to do pleasures, but it's been a thrill pleasure to be on this panel with every single one of you today. I've learned so much already, and I'm so grateful to be by your side today.
Oh, it's me. I'm sorry, I totally blanked on where what was happening, because I am a little person among giants, and I very appreciate being a part of this panel today. A piece of advice I would give for somebody who wants to go out and do that. I mean, Nekima and Evelyn both already told you guys, just do it. Write, read. Reading is a big part of writing, because you read a book and you're like, I could do better than this, to do it. Just do it. Write the book, because honestly, writing the book and producing the book and getting it published is the easy part. That is the easiest part, because then you got to sell it. You got to market it. That's the hard part. So get through that easy part. That's the easy part. But yeah, like they said, just do it. Just write. Like Nekima said, find somebody. There are tons of Black mentors or Black writers out there that would take people on as mentors. I'm definitely one of them. You can always reach out to me. I love helping Black authors, because my biggest mission is just to get Black books in on shelves and in Black children's hands. So you can always hit me up. Instagram, Crown the Writer, anything Crown the Writer. CrownTheWriter.com is my website. Crown Shepherd on Facebook. If you inbox me, give me a day or two. Please don't cuss me out. I'm kind of busy sometimes. Give me a day or two and I will hit you back. I definitely hit you back. I also leave tips on Instagram a lot about just being a self-published writer in this world, and just the things that you have to do to be successful. what else was I supposed to? You guys, that's what you guys wanted. Yeah, do it. Those are the places that you can find me. And I'm excited to see y'all books.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Can I just add that if you don't already follow Crown, you need to, because her videos are
Fire.
hands.
Yes.
She's hilarious. She dresses up. Okay. Be forewarned, but it's hilarious. It's cute. It's energetic. And it gives you tidbits, all in one. So it's fantastic. I just wanted to put that out there. If you're not already following Crown, follow her for her videos, if not anything else right now, for her videos. They're hilarious.
You can catch me in the Tigger suit. I be in the Tigger suit. I be everywhere in Minneapolis. If you see me in Minneapolis handing out my books, I'm probably in a Tigger suit doing it. It's my favorite thing to do.
It's my favorite thing for you to do. I wanted to just acknowledge that this is made possible. Black Children's Book Week is made possible by a Black woman, Veronica Chapman, who is the founder of Black Baby Books and Box Out Enterprises. We want to just thank her for dreaming this into existence. So often Black women create things and they don't get the credit, or somebody else appropriates it and the original creator does not get acknowledged. So we are here today thanks to Veronica Chapman. Thank you for creating this and giving us time to pause and acknowledge and celebrate our work and our picture books for our Black and Brown children. And I just wanted to thank each of you personally. I love each of you individually and personally. You enrich my life in ways that you don't even know. I think about each of you daily, and I just feel like this was such a divine opportunity for me to share space with the three of you at one time. Fierce is all I can say. Fierce, 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 and more fierce. Thank you all. This is your year for your books. Thank you for creating and birthing them. And it's just been such a pleasure to have even just a slight connection to what you are doing and what you will continue to do. Thank you all so, so much. And
Thank you, Dara.
Thank you, Dara.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. You guys are awesome.
You guys are awesome. I'm like,
I'm going to look